We are continuing our Noirvember challenge on today's episode of Monday Madness. If you haven't looked at part one, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't watched it, if you haven't listened to it, do go and do that. I mean, you don't absolutely have to, because it is completely separate questions, but if you want to get the full picture of the celebration of film noir, the celebration of Noirvember, I would highly recommend doing that. 15 more exciting topic questions to get into today in celebrating our most favourite genre. Welcome back to the madness! Hello everyone, welcome back to Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine. I am delighted to be back for part 2 of our Noirvember special, Jeannine.
Yes, I think we talked about in the first half that it was a bit of a difficult challenge to kind of recall all the noir films we had seen and really specify it in this way. So going into the second half, definitely still feeling difficult, but I was more like excited about the challenge of it, and really ended up delving into a bunch of new noir because my plan was already to watch a bunch of noir this month. So in watching some new things that I ended up really enjoying, I found a ton of answers for this last half of these questions. So very exciting.
That is exactly what something like this can prompt. That is exactly what something like this should be doing. It's what a celebration like what Noirvember has become over the last few years for us old movie fans. A month-long celebration of noir. It's not an official holiday yet, but I know there's plenty of people in the world wanting it to be made into an official holiday. Public holiday. We spend time off work. It's worldwide, it's international, and everybody just watches at least 30 noir movies throughout November. It's at least one a day. That's what it should be.
Fair. Yeah.
Rather than just having 30 questions and topics to discuss based around this wonderful genre like we have. We did open our episode last time by asking each other, by contemplating what exactly film noir is for those who don't know. And of course, maybe there is some of you just tuning into Monday Madness just today. You haven't watched, you haven't listened to the last episode, so I think we'll kind of reiterate again that film noir as a genre is more of a vibe, more of a feeling than a genre with necessarily defined tropes. There are certainly tropes involved, but it is so varied and so wide in its scope that really a overall sense of darkness, of kind of almost pessimism, and a crime element, often a manipulative element, often in the movie, in whatever context story wise that comes under, you can definitely call film noir. It can also, of course, be a visual style, heavy shadows, heavy lighting, fog and that kind of stuff. But as we are about to find out on an episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show where we are, of course, celebrating film noir all November long, you can also get technicolor, lavish technicolor film noir, which is very, very interesting in itself. But for those of us who do love film noir, it's a genre that has increasingly become more and more popular. An old Hollywood genre, admittedly, that has increasingly become more and more popular, I think, with newer movie fans, maybe because of its rather pulpy nature. It's kind of, they're old movies that very, very frequently don't come across in that, I think, what many people who don't like old movies think old movies are of stuffy, boring, long drawn out,
Yeah.
I don't want to watch them kind of thing. Noir is the antithesis of that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
constantly exciting, constantly on the edge, constantly.
Tension. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the noirs that I watched all had really kind of dynamic fights and chases and, a lot of exciting things going on and these really tense builds in terms of, double crosses and things like that. So there's always something happening and building. And sometimes, the plots do maybe get a little complicated, but for the most part, they're pretty straightforward and there's always something happening. So,
And when it's a
an
complicated
incredibly
plot, it just
entertaining
adds to the mystery, right?
yeah, definitely.
But yes, the old Hollywood film noir cycle does tend to go from roughly The Maltese Falcon in 1941 to roughly Touch of Evil in 1958. Even that isn't defined. Of course, you get proto noir that came before that, neo noir
Neo-noir,
that
yeah.
came after that, and continues to come. After that, we spoke about all that in our part 1 of this
Mhm.
Noirvember challenge on the last episode of Monday Madness. We also had questions like best noir character actor, best noir opening, sexiest film noir,
Yeah,
things like that. But we do have some very, very out of the box questions today.
we
I
do.
also feel like some of these questions that we're going to be discussing wanted very specific answers. Like this challenge has clearly been made, I think we should say as well, by Lady K Designs. You can find
Yeah.
her over on Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter. That's where we found this challenge. She has noted that we are doing this challenge as well, so that was nice to hear.
Yeah.
It's been nice to see other people getting involved in this particular challenge as well, that I've definitely seen over there. That's always a nice thing to see and to do. You feel that sort of community that is greatly missing from the app formerly known as Twitter these days.
100%.
But it was there in a small part in Noirvember, and it's nice to see that,
Yeah.
certainly in our circles, I
Yes.
think. Jeannine. But there are definitely some out of the box questions today, so thank you to Lady K Designs for
Yes,
that.
thank you.
But like I said, there are some ones that I think have been put in there for very, very specific reasons. And I've noticed that maybe in this second half of the questions, these last 15 questions are very focused on certain production companies, certain kind of studios, rather than others, which
Yeah.
I think is nice. We do have one of these questions that is very specific. What is your favorite film noir from a specific studio? And it seems to me that there are specific things being focused on, which I don't mind.
Yeah, no, I liked having to really rack my brain and think about very specific things like that, and even like I said, you said some of the outside the box questions. I think you kind of found a way to recontextualize some of them in interesting ways,
Yes,
so I'm excited to see how you did that. I think I tried to take them a little bit more literally, but also, kind of make it a layered thing as well. So I'm excited to hear our answers and see if we have some overlap again, like we did last time.
oh, I'm sure we will to a certain extent. Let's get straight on into it then, Jeannine. With our question 1 for today, of course, there's 15 more questions.
Yes.
Technically, it's question 16, but
16.
we'll call it question 1 for part 2. Or should we just call it question
Yeah, I can
16?
call it question 16. Yeah.
Because that's what it is in the challenge. We have to start off favorite film noir. Cabbie, taxi drivers are a staple of film
Yeah.
noir.
Yeah.
What do we have for this?
Well, for me, I didn't have, of course, one off the top of my head. So I did
There we
kind of
go.
I did do a little research and, looking at films about cab drivers or involved cab drivers. And I ended up stumbling across one that would actually fit well for another question, but I think it's actually perfect for this one. And so my favorite film noir cabbie is a character named Ernie Driscoll from 99 River Street from 1953.
Okay.
Yes, so I watched this film for the first time. I think it's probably like a B tier noir film, as you know,
Okay.
it had actors that I wasn't really super familiar with, but a really interesting story. This guy, he's a former boxer. We kind of open with his last fight. He got injured to where, you know, his optical nerve was really kind of in danger of damage and couldn't see. And so he was told kind of one more fight and you could go blind kind of thing. So he's ended up having to drive a cab for work and can't fight anymore. His wife, who wants the nicer things in life, is just kind of over it. She's tired of struggling. She doesn't want to be with him anymore. So she's kind of cold and distant. Um, and then we learn that she is having this affair and she's going to run away with this guy. And he has this whole plan to get these diamonds and get money for them so that they can run away together.
Okay.
Um, he the guy kind of messes up the deal because he brings her to the pickup for the cash and the trade, but the guy with the diamonds, he says, I don't do business with women, so he shuts the deal down right there. He doesn't want to do it because he brought a woman, so it
Oh,
becomes
well.
this. Yes.
There's questionable things going on there, but
Yes. So, obviously they go to get a cab, and who is driving the cab that pulls up? Her husband. So he sees that she's having this affair. So now it's become a more complicated situation, and he has a big kind of rage issue. So
okay.
he's kind of stewing, he's taking it out on people. He's friends with this woman who works at this regular diner he stops at, and she's an actress. She comes to him with a situation of being in trouble. So there's a lot of like little situations happening, and they all really come together in an interesting way. As our lead character, this cabbie is a former boxer. He, you know, there's a lot of really great fight scenes with him in kind of this big kind of final face off with our villain character. He's recalling his last fight. Like we can hear the announcer kind of
Okay.
announcing the last fight while he's kind of in this fight with this guy. And, you know, we see him really just punching guys, going at it, jumping over each other. Like we're getting some really intense kind of stunt kind of fighting and stuff. So, and the cab company he works for is made up of people who actually care about him, who are his friends. I
Yeah,
think one of the
you
guys,
often
this is,
find that. You do
yeah,
often find that in cab noir, like,
yeah, like their own kind of like little crew. So, our cabbie, he does kind of get implicated in some situations, and so they kind of cover for him and
I
stuff
like
like
it.
that. And I think his trainer actually is one of the people who works there as well, like his former trainer. So when he's getting really stewing and angry about his wife, he's trying to advise him. And even when he takes it out on him and like pushes him and shoves him, you know, he's like, no, like it's okay. Like just take a breather, you know, just meet me at the diner in like an hour and we'll talk through this. And like, so I really liked this guy that, you know, he's really rough around the edges. He gets really angry. He flies off the handle, but he has good people around him. And he ultimately you know, is really just kind of frustrated with the state of his life. And so we get into a really deep layered character, a really gray character, which is what we get in noir. He's not perfect by any means. But I like that he's not just a cabbie. He has layers. They're a former fighter, and that the cab company that he works for and all of that plays a big part in the story as well. So it's not just like your friendly cabbie, almost like Sam in Casablanca, that he's just kind of like this staple character that people know. Because I think that's maybe what the
Yeah.
question in my mind was alluding to. But the fact that I found this whole movie that kind of circled around a cab driver and, you know, taxi cabs in general, I really appreciate it because I really ended up enjoying this movie a lot.
Yeah, I mean, 99 River Street isn't a movie that I've seen either, but it seems to be one that I feel like I should have seen
Yes,
and
yeah.
certainly want to see, because it's not while you say, and rightly so, that I think it's a B noir, it's a very kind of top tier B noir, which are some of my favorite noir movies are those top tier B noirs rather than the A noirs, you know, the Oscar winning noirs.
Yeah.
Because you can tend to find more interesting things going on when you are dealing with slightly lesser stars, because maybe they're willing to do different things or go a bit harder or whatever it may be. But it definitely sounds like an interesting movie, and definitely well focused on the cab side of things as well. There's an element you brought up in that, which is that community aspect of cabbies in film noir that I want to bring up for my pick, which is Witness in the City from 1959, French-Italian co-production, also one from Radiance Films World Noir Volume 1 set. So if you go and watch that. I did bring that up in the last episode of this show as well. Great movies, obviously, but for all intents and purposes, it's a French movie. It's just one of its leads is Italian. It's set in Paris and has a notable credit for the radio taxis. Like in the opening credits, it credits the radio taxi because the entire movie is based around this taxi company. And the witness in the city aspect is witness to a murder, and it's this big kind of slow chase noir where you're following Lino Ventura, who's the Italian dude, who is really very, very intense. He is, from what I can recall, he is the murderer, and you're kind of following him trying to cover himself up, trying to track down this particular cabbie as a witness. I believe it's like that. It's been a while since I've watched it, but what I remember most notably from this movie, number one was the fact that it was beautifully shot. There is actually a video. I did a video on this movie very, very early on this year on this channel. So if I'm messing up details now, I wouldn't have been on that video.
So go check that out.
What I remember most notably from it is that it's really, really beautifully shot and intensely shot, very dynamic, very on the ground. It's on location. It's in Paris. It's really, really dynamic in that way, constantly following around with this slow chase. But also the community aspect of the cab drivers in this movie. That end up
internationally.
That end up in the finale all coming together to act as roadblocks because they know the streets better than Lino Ventura does.
I love that.
They all come together as roadblocks because the police don't really do anything of note. It's the taxi cabs. Because he's going after one of their own that all come together to block him off and capture him and eventually, hand him over to the police. But that is what I really like about that.
I like
the first thing
that.
that came into my mind when I heard this question. Because of that, I like that coming together aspect of a taxi cab company. Let's not take ages on each question.
I know.
84 hours, but yes, Witness in the City, 1959. Jeannine, if we want to move on to question 17, which is favorite film noir shot on location. I had one that immediately popped to mind in this, but there is a lot.
I mean, mine's not incredibly outside the box. It's pretty much in the place where all of these films are most likely made, and that is Hollywood. But in the way that it does it is really interesting. So of course, it's
LA noir.
Yes, I mean, it's back again, and that is Sunset Boulevard.
Fair.
Yes, which I loved. Kind of obviously it takes place in LA, but it is a film that at its time was kind of groundbreaking in that it was this meta commentary. It was this self-aware film. So when Gloria Swanson is going to Paramount and saying that she built Paramount, there would be no Paramount without her. It's
Yeah,
actually kind of the layered thing that Gloria Swanson herself,
yeah,
beyond the character of Norma Desmond, actually did the same thing. So being at Paramount on the lot and you know being on the sound stage and all of these things, and it just being this kind of behind the curtain look to people watching this movie, I thought was so intelligent to use LA. Everybody knows that's where movies are made, but to get that peek behind the curtain in terms of filming it there on the studio lot, having her at the gate and having it be a known studio, a known director, all of these things.
yeah.
Um,
DeMille, isn't it, in the movie?
yes. And even, you know, Max, like, being
Mm,
a former director when the actor
yeah.
himself is a director, and having her kind of relic friends be also actors from the silent era, and they don't really name them, so they could just be playing themselves. Um, so yeah, all of these kind of layered things, and obviously the title lets you know that it's in LA. So I like that we are fully aware it's a Hollywood film made in Hollywood. It's not pretending to be somewhere else. We know that it's Hollywood, and we're getting this kind of look behind the scenes and going on a studio lot
I
and that
like
kind of
that.
thing. So that's what kind of was the first thing that popped into my head.
I like that. There's a reason Sunset Boulevard keeps popping up in these questions because
Yeah.
it is one of the best
Yeah.
noirs out there. My pick for this is one that we did also discuss a little bit on the first part of this because I think it's Sweet Smell of Success from
Okay.
1957, which is New York. It's the complete opposite
Yeah.
of the US, but is so beautifully shot on
Oh,
location
yes. Mhm.
in the busiest, bustling New York
Yeah.
possible. You were bringing this movie up when you were
With
talking about James Wong Howe,
yes, yes.
and the it's I mean it is true on location shooting. It's the kind of New York on location shooting you got in the 70s, but in the
Yeah.
late
Oh,
50s.
yeah, 70s in New York, so good. Like, so many like, how did they manage to capture a lot of the things that they were able to capture
Right,
in those movies? Yeah.
but
Just
it
guerrilla
is
filmmaking.
then that's exactly what it is. It's Tony Curtis running around Times Square a lot,
Yeah.
trying to do what he can for a fairly evil Burt Lancaster and a
Yeah.
oddly incestuous Burt Lancaster as well. Let's not forget that
Oh,
aspect of Sweet Smell of Success.
yeah.
It's very good in the movie, obviously, but this is all about how it is shot on location and the chaos of a busy Times Square
Yeah.
is mirrored so great in the chaos of Tony Curtis's life
Yeah.
and Tony Curtis's mind. Everything's always at night. It
Yes, so we're getting all
is
the lights. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it is complete sensory overload and is
Mhm.
perfect on location
That's what you want.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's what you want from a noir because it gives you the mood, it gives you the feeling that you should get from an overstimulating film noir that Sweet Smell of Success very, very much is. And it wouldn't work without that on location shooting. If this was sets made up to look like that, it just does not have the same effect because
No.
you get all the real noise, all the real, you know, visuals of random people walking
Yes, the
around that
bustle
aren't
and
just
yeah.
that aren't just hired extras. They are just on the street,
Street, yeah.
and you're just filming on the street, which doesn't happen a great deal. It's in the studio system in old Hollywood, it doesn't happen a great deal for a
Yeah.
major movie, and it definitely did once you got a little bit further into the late 50s. Sweet Smell of Success,
Yeah.
I think, was a big proponent in doing that. Camera sizes got a little smaller and more manageable and more mobile as well. James Wong Howe, as we say, was a great proponent of doing that. So yeah, Sweet Smell of Success, I think
Yeah.
for me, has to be the favorite noir shot on
Nice.
location.
Okay.
Next, we have a question that I genuinely don't have an answer for.
Mhm.
I'll explain why. Because why would I like a film noir if I don't like the ending
I
of a
mean,
film noir?
so I had an answer to this, and it wasn't for lack of the film being good. It was just kind of a personal preference thing for me. So, I prefer my noirs to have kind of that bleak ending. It's the one genre where I'm like, I'm not super upset or sad or miserable when we get kind of a sad ending
Yeah.
because, our characters are either mixed up in miserable things, so it's kind of, how could it end any other way? Um,
We should
and
say this is our favorite film noir with an ending you don't like.
yes,
That's
so we
that's
still
what.
enjoy the film, but we're not particularly fans of the ending. So, and I'm not opposed to noirs that do have happy endings or up
No,
endings. But
absolutely not.
but I think it just needs to be balanced tonally, because even in looking at, the film I just mentioned, 99 River Street, that ends with a pretty up ending despite kind of how crazy it gets. But it blended with the tone. Even when we did get a little bit kind of jokey at the end, it was a callback to something that a character had said earlier in the film, so it didn't kind
Okay.
of come out of nowhere. So a recent noir I watched was The Blue Gardenia. It is from
Okay.
1953 and Baxter. Um, and yeah, it was kind of dark and gritty. The film follows a woman who gets a Dear John letter from her boyfriend who's fighting in the war. He tells her he's leaving her for someone else. So she gets a call from a man who's trying to hook up with a roommate, but she ends up just meeting with the man and goes out drinking with him, having a good time just to kind of forget she's sad. And then the man tries to come on to her. She attacks him. We don't really see what happens. And then she just wakes up in this man's place without her shoes and kind of just finds her way home and passes out. She doesn't remember what happens.
Okay.
Then next thing we know, the man is dead. So
Yeah.
she's freaking out. She doesn't know if she killed him. She thinks she might have. And so the whole movie is her being tense and scared that she might have killed this man. A news journalist is following the story. And so he puts a letter out in his newspaper. Hey, if you're the lady who killed this man, the blue gardenia, because she was wearing one that night and it fell off and it was part of
Yeah.
what the police found on the scene. Um, Come to me. And if you share your story with me, we will get you the best law team and all this thing to fight this case. So, she still doesn't know what's going on with her, and, kind of a romantic thing kind of ends up happening with her and the journalist, and she's not really kind of fully revealing to him that she's the one. She's kind of pretending that the person who did it is her friend and this whole kind of
Okay.
thing. So it's this dark kind of, "Oh, did I kill this man? Oh my gosh, can I trust this journalist?" And so all very kind of tense, and then we get this kind of, like, screwball comedy ending. And
Ooh.
so it just doesn't sit well in terms of the shift. It takes, like, a real tonal shift, and, like, her and her girlfriend roommates are kind of joking, and, it's kind of like a misunderstanding between her and the journalist, and it ends up kind of like the last little bit of the film ends up feeling like a screwball comedy misunderstanding.
I can
And even the
understand
music,
why.
even the score beat is kind of, like, up and silly like a screwball comedy. So,
Okay.
yeah, the only reason why I would say it's an ending I don't like is because it's just this kind of out of left field tonal shift, and it doesn't really work with the rest of the film. So,
I can definitely understand why you would say that then. It's the kind of thing I was trying to think of, and I just
yeah,
kept coming back to noirs with happy endings.
yeah.
But any noir with a happy ending that I could think of, um, I were ones that I do enjoy the fact that they
Yeah,
end
and
up
it
in a
works,
happy
and the
ending.
happy ending works. But here, I generally liked the film. I liked the story. I liked seeing Anne Baxter not be like
And
a
yeah,
terrible person, but her thinking she
not be
might be a
Eve.
terrible person. Yeah, so I liked seeing her not be outright evil for once. And generally enjoyed the story, but just kind of how they executed the ending just felt like a weird tonal disconnect.
See, I was maybe thinking about Ransom with Glenn Ford
Okay.
and Donna Reed. That we covered on the main show, is a
Mhm.
very tense movie. Obviously, it's a very emotional movie at times.
Yeah.
Glenn Ford, you know, pleading to the camera on that television show that he goes on,
Yeah. Mhm.
for his son to be returned to him. And I think at the end, when the son just is returned to them, it just felt a little bit too easy.
Yeah, it was very
Maybe,
anticlimactic. Yeah.
like, this is a noir. This has been put to us as a noir. And yes, okay, it's a bit of a family struggle, but there's a lot of darkness in that movie. There's a lot
Yeah.
of tension between
Mhm. Him and his wife and her whole
leads.
kind of breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah, in that movie. There's an awful lot of tension. And it's a happy ending though. So I was thinking, wait a minute, do I not actually like that ending? Because it was the one I was really thinking of that I maybe could choose for this.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, I actually appreciate that it's a happy ending because I don't like to see Glenn Ford and Donna Reed struggle. There are certain actors that I like to see go through, some stuff,
Yeah.
go through a bit of mess because they play it really well. But I don't like to see those two go through that. So
Yeah.
I like that it ends happily for them. Maybe it felt a little bit rushed. Maybe I would have liked to see a bigger actual struggle to
Yeah. No, I get
get
that.
the son back rather than him just be given back. Uh,
Yeah. That's how I feel kind of about the movie Jackie Brown. Like, it's this really big build and tension,
yeah,
interesting characters, and then it just kinda ends, like, it builds to
yeah.
this big standoff, and then it's like, "Okay." Like
So maybe I could choose Ransom, which I think is
Yes, yes. I
55-ish,
think that's fair. You can
1955-ish.
and it's your favorite, so you still enjoy it, but something about the
And I
ending
do
maybe just
enjoy the
doesn't
movie.
doesn't completely sit, in, a nice cozy place for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well, next up we have our favorite film noir featuring an address. This is one of the questions I've tweaked a little bit
Okay.
because you could have chosen 99 River Street, right?
Yes.
There's an address. I didn't choose one with an address in the title because I haven't seen 99 River Street, and the only other one I could think of was 711 Ocean Drive, which
Okay.
all I can remember about that movie, I have seen the movie. It's in one of those Columbia Noir box sets behind me. Is that it's kind of like a buddy police noir with Edmund O'Brien.
Yeah.
Um, and it's about two police officers going after the same girl. That's
Okay.
literally all I can remember about the movie.
Okay.
Um, so I couldn't choose that. So I've decided to tweak it in the
Okay.
sense of this is a movie that features a location that features all characters going to one particular addressed location
Okay.
and staying there for the entire movie, and it's about what happens there. And also, I wanted to talk about this movie because it's a great movie, because I've decided to go with Key Largo,
Okay.
which Key Largo is itself a addressed location. You can write Key
Yeah,
Largo
and
on
it
an
just says
envelope and it
featuring
gets
an
there.
address. Yeah, it doesn't say it has to be the title of the film or even anything like that. It just has to feature
Yeah,
this address. Yeah.
it features the hotel owned by Lauren Bacall and
Mhm.
and Lionel Barrymore in Key Largo, because
Okay.
Key Largo's the best boiling pot movie of all time, and Edward G.
Okay.
Robinson's so good in the movie, and Bogart and
Yes.
Bacall are so good in the movie, and Lionel Barrymore is so good
So
in the
good.
movie, and everything's
Yeah.
just wonderful, and the whole hurricane just getting way too much for everybody as all the tension builds and builds and builds and builds while the hurricane's building and building and building. There's mystery involved as
Yes.
well. There's murder involved. Why is Edward G. Robinson there? What exactly
What is
does he
going
want? Why
on?
is he
Yeah.
being so horrible? It might be my favorite Edward G. Robinson performance.
Okay.
Um, it's
Yes.
definitely, I think, the most evil
Oh,
Edward G.
yeah. And I'm
performance.
surprised he hasn't really played, evil more in the things that we've covered, because I think in
He
most
plays
films we've seen him in.
bothersome.
Yeah.
He's good at playing bothersome. Like, you think about about him in Double Indemnity, right? Like, he's
Yeah.
just doing his job, but
Yeah.
he is bothersome for Fred McMurray because he's
Yes.
so efficient at doing his job.
Yeah.
But then you think about him in the two, my
Oh,
favorite two
yeah.
Fritz Lang movies,
The
Woman in the Window,
back-to-backs we did.
Scarlet Street, where
Mhm.
he's just a bit sappy and a bit
Yeah.
soft, and
So sad.
you
Yeah.
feel so much pity for him. But
Yes.
this is, and then obviously, going back to Little Caesar and gangster movies before noir was noir. But Key Largo is him at his most unpredictably
Sinister.
evil and
Yes. Yeah.
sinister. And I'm claiming that movie features an address. Do I say it's my favourite Bogart and Bacall? I think I do, don't I, generally? Because it probably is. I know we talked about Dark Passage last episode. Big Sleep's obviously great. Have and Have Not's great as well. But considering there's only 4, I go back to Key Largo and think about Key Largo more than the others, admittedly.
Yeah.
And I think just the ensemble's great.
It's great, yeah. And it's like on top of the tension building with everything else, so you also have this storm brewing that just adds to everything.
Yeah.
And we do have a podcast episode on that, so check it out.
Oh, we certainly do. We certainly do. And I've likened it to it featuring an address just because everybody combines in one addressed location.
Yeah, no, I think it works. For me, I went for Pickup on South Street.
Which is a good movie. Yes, I like that.
Yes, and we do actually get the specific address on South Street, so 66 South Street. It is kind of like this location that everybody's going to. We open, I think we're like on a public bus, and this pickpocket played by Richard Widmark steals something from this woman's purse. It was something that she was holding for her ex-boyfriend and was supposed to deliver it for him inconspicuously, but somebody steals it from her bag, and his hideout is the 66 South Street.
Yeah.
And it's like in this kind of shack on the pier.
Oh, I should watch Pickup on South Street again. It's
yes. So everybody is constantly going there. The girlfriend, she ends up finding where he is and goes there and almost tries to like seduce him to get back the items. Police will go there to try to question him. The people he stole the items from go there looking for him. So it's a constant kind of meeting point to kind of figure out what's going on, and our plot really circles a lot around this location. So I like that, it's in the title as this vague thing, but it ends up kind of being this touchstone for all of the moving parts of the story. So this was a new watch for me this month, and I really did enjoy this one.
It's a great movie. Sam Fuller directed, obviously, the king of pulp. Thelma Ritter's in the movie. Great performance.
1953. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful movie. Good shout there. Happy to talk about that. Next one's a doozy, Jeannine, because we have our favourite line in a film. This is a big question.
I know. I don't know if my answer is good enough, but
here is a genre that perhaps more than any other genres is built around its dialogue. Is built around its sort of hard-edged, hard-boiled dialogue, right? Where people are saying completely unbelievable things to each other because it's just so perfectly, poetically, darkly written by the master script writers who wrote so much noir, and the novels that noir came from as well. You think of the Dashiell Hammetts, the James M. Cains, the Cornell Woolriches, the people like that all these noir movies really have to thank for creating that genre in literature that started like in the 20s, right? In the 1920s. So many great noirs are built on so many great lines, endlessly quotable. We've mentioned loads of these movies already over these 2 episodes,
Yeah.
and in countless, episodes of It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show, I wanted to bring up, though, a movie I watched for the first time only this past week, which is shocking, really, given how big of a movie it is, not only in the noir genre, but given who its director is as well. Why has it took me this long to watch The Killing? Stanley
Okay.
Kubrick's The Killing, the great heist movie that it is. But I was
On my list to watch, but I haven't
totally,
watched it yet.
I was totally struck by one particular line in the movie that I thought embodied noir
Ooh.
so perfectly. That line is said by Sterling Hayden, who is the lead of The Killing. Again, I'm just ashamed at myself that it took me so long. As a self-professed massive film noir fan, why is it taking me so long to watch The Killing? But there's so much noir. There's only so much time you have to watch movies. One day I'll get round to every single noir, but that won't come anytime soon. There's too many. But this line, when you hear it, I'm building it up. I'm building it up for a reason.
Yes, you are.
When you hear it, Jeannine,
well, now mine's gonna just be so lame because you're doing this great setup.
You will realize that it is so perfectly film noir. You've got a great big dollar sign there where most women have a heart.
Ooh. Yes, that totally speaks to the femme fatale perfectly.
It just hit me.
That hits.
I almost paused the movie to just take a minute and go, oh, that's such a good line.
Okay, I like it.
So maybe there's recency bias playing there because, okay, there's more famous quotes in film noir, sure. Many from Sunset Boulevard. I mean, how many times do we want to bring up Sunset Boulevard?
I know, which of course that was a thought, but I definitely wanted to just branch out and try to pick different things for every question, even if, obviously when it's asking for favorite, but I did want to give but I did want to give an array of choices and talk about films that maybe people don't know about so they can go check them out as well. So I did go back to one we did cover on the podcast. It's an older one and I did recently revisit this month. And that is from Laura.
From Laura, very nice. Is this quote said by Vincent Price?
It is said by
very
Vincent
nice.
Price as the character Shelby Carpenter. I can afford a blemish on my character, but not on my clothes.
Oh, I like it. It's so good.
Yes, I'm watching it and I just was like, oh, I really like that. And it just it perfectly illustrates everything you need to know about this character.
Yeah, he is snooty in Laura, isn't he? He's so full of himself.
He's so up his own butt and very much a snob and just very high on himself and isn't against kind of doing bad things to get the result he wants. But also not really being a very strong, strong-willed character.
No.
So that line from him just definitely, I thought it was just a cool, quick embodiment for you to get to know a character just from that one line. So.
Yeah, I remember I was reading the book of Laura, actually. It might have been earlier this year, might have been towards the back end of last year, but obviously the only voice I'm hearing reading Shelby Carpenter's dialogue is Vincent Price's. And I'm trying to, do an impression of Vincent Price while reading it. It's great. That's a great line, though. I love that as well. Maybe there's a recency angle coming into that as well. But why not talk about really those movies?
Yeah.
The next one's an interesting question, Jeannine, because this is our favorite noir on a boat, train or a building.
So for me, I think the train aspect is where I went, and
it's also where I went. Yes, I hope we have the same one.
No, I don't think we do. I don't think we do, because
Oh,
mine isn't, like, consistently on a train. It takes place on a train yard. A lot of the major events happen on the train. So I went with A Human Desire from 1954, another new watch for me.
oh,
Glenn
okay.
Ford, Gloria Graham, Broderick Crawford, all kind of just big
Yes.
names in the noir genre.
Broderick
Um,
Crawford's so nasty in
yes, and
Human Desire.
he is, he's terrible. Story follows him, he gets fired from his job at the train yard and asks his wife, who is friendly with his boss, to try to convince him to get his job back. She goes and she's gone for far too long in his opinion, so when she comes back,
Mm,
he assumes that she's having an affair with the boss, and he won't believe her when she says she's not. So he convinces her to go meet the boss on the train, and he ultimately kills the boss.
yeah.
And, her just being sick of his violent nature, she ends up actually striking up an affair with his coworker played by Glenn Ford. So
Yes.
it's a very tense situation. Um, uh, People don't know who killed the boss, and she's, obviously sees what her husband is capable of, so she's kind of living in fear, having this side relationship with Glenn Ford, and it all takes place in this train situation. So the murder happens on the train. She meets Glenn Ford on the train for the first time. We see several scenes of him driving the train. There's a bit of a chase that happens in the train yard going across the tracks as trains are
Yeah.
going by. So we're getting some really expansive shots in this train yard set piece. So trains all over this movie. So that was kind of where my mind went. And maybe, yes, again, recency bias, but this movie, I think the trains and the train yard and having a train job were all big aspects of this movie. So that's where my head went.
I like it. I do. I like that as a choice. I mean, look, you could have gone. We haven't even. I'm very surprised. 45 minutes into part two, and we haven't mentioned Double Indemnity yet. We could have gone Double Indemnity
We could have, yeah.
because the whole murder plan is based around pushing somebody off a train.
Yes, and
And
strangers on a train.
well, you say that I've decided to go with Strangers on a Train because I
Yes,
don't
the
think we've
lady
mentioned
vanishes, I think was
Lady
also a train.
Vanishes.
Mhm,
It
yeah,
is, yeah. Lady Vanishes. More of a murder mystery than a noir.
yeah, yeah,
Earlier than noir, really British as well. So it's not quite. Brit noir comes somewhat slightly later than American noir does come. But I've decided to go with Strangers on a Train because I don't think we've spoken enough about Hitchcock noir
yeah.
on the shows yet. Um, I mean, it's obviously a great movie. I think it's still not one of the ones that you immediately think of when you think of great Hitchcock movies, but probably should be because it is so good. And if you like a certain style of Hitchcock movie, Strangers on a Train is the perfect one for doing that. It is incredibly tense
Yes.
constantly. I mean, okay, it's been absolutely ages since I've watched the movie, but given that the entire plot is based around them, the two of them meeting on the train
Mhm.
and talking and striking up that rapport on the train, striking up that intrigue with one another on the train, and the craziness of where it ends up getting. And okay, it turns into a tennis movie, but it does. And then a
Yeah.
carousel movie as well at
Right.
the end when it's all the thing about the carousel.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a wonderful movie that the train is fundamental to. And
To the
look,
plan, yeah.
I would have chosen Double Indemnity. I could have chosen Lady on a Train
Yeah.
with Deanna Durbin from 1945, but we're covering that movie on the main show next month for a bit of a festive film noir
Yeah.
because it's set kind of around Christmas. And really, Lady on a Train is just, I've seen a murder happen while passing an apartment building on a train. So
Yeah.
it's all this kind of thing of
Yeah.
the plot is set up on the train.
Yeah.
And then it moves on from that. And that is kind of Strangers on a Train, isn't it? The plot is set up on a train.
On a train, yeah. And then meeting, formulating, all of that happens.
Your choice is better because the entire thing is
It's
really based around trains.
Yes.
It is. And we haven't remotely thought about a boat.
Boat or a building.
Have not, you could, or a building. To have and have not, you could say boat, right?
Yeah.
Boat noir. Building, I mean, that could be anything.
Yeah.
It's a bit too, grand, a bit not grand, vague, big kind of topic. But I think we've got a couple of nice picks there.
Yeah.
This is another interesting question we've got coming up next. I do actually have a good answer for this because I think this one is a great movie. Favorite film noir secretary. Every good private eye needs a good secretary.
Yeah. So this was tricky because I didn't want to go for the obvious one, but
Who's the obvious one, Jeannine?
I think the obvious one is Effie from Maltese Falcon because she's in there. She's helping him. She's the one person who doesn't get on his nerves. She's getting in the action when she needs to. She's loyal to a fault. She really comes in and has her moments in the story. But again, kind of recency bias, and this is also going to be an answer for another question. And I don't know how much you would constitute her as a secretary. She kind of like runs the desk and handles the money and all these kinds of things for this Roadhouse in the film Roadhouse.
Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Not to be confused with the Patrick Swayze film. Roadhouse from 1948. And her character's name is Susie Smith, played by Celeste Holm, who's great at kind of this best friend side character. Absolutely love her and All About Eve. She kind of just comes in when she needs to and has some little sassy, fun commentary, and she's always playing like a fun character, but also a really caring character as well. So she is always great at finding that balance, and so she kind of helps run things behind the scenes at this Roadhouse. She kind of runs front of house and is cashier and does the books and things like that. So I was like, I think she would maybe count as a secretary. And then she does end up playing into the plot in a pretty major way, kind of going to the end of the film. So and especially just her being played by Celeste Holm.
Fair. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that choice. I've gone with someone, I suppose, in the vein of Effie from Maltese Falcon. Someone very, very loyal, and incredibly dedicated to her boss. And it's Ella Raines from Phantom Lady. Robert Siodmak's Phantom Lady, 1944, slightly earlier. I obviously like Siodmak movies. This is great, but the whole purpose and point of Phantom Lady is based around Ella Raines as the secretary, who tries to. She basically turns investigator herself at this point, which is the interesting aspect of Phantom Lady, as she goes around trying to prove that her boss is not a murderer.
Okay.
That's the story of Phantom Lady. I won't go into too much.
Yes, no, I haven't seen that.
It's a very, very twisty movie. It's a very, very heavy revelation kind of noir movie. But the fact that it is probably the only one I can think of where the entire movie is fundamentally based around the secretary herself, it had to be my choice for this. And Ella Raines is such a great noir star as well. She's in so many in supporting roles and kind of B lead roles, and she should be spoken about as a great staple of this genre. And I think she's probably certainly at one of her best roles in Phantom Lady, probably because she has most to do in something like Phantom Lady. It's a movie I've only seen once. I remember very, very much enjoying it, though. It is, like I said, a very, very kind of revelation type of movie,
Yeah.
full of those kind of things, full of mystery. But yeah, she's fundamental to it. It's about, the the guy's wife dies, is
Mhm.
murdered, and everybody thinks it's him,
He
and
did it, yeah.
is the one who has to go and prove that
Okay,
it
it's proof of
wasn't,
innocence. Okay, I like that. No, I've never seen that, so
because of her loyalty,
I like that.
which you need as a secretary, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, speaking of, private eyes and people's understudies, not understudies, secretaries, I suppose. We talked about Effie in the Maltese Falcon. Here's a question about maybe Sam Spade or maybe Philip Marlowe or any other such version of Bogart or Dick Powell or anybody else who want to
Yes,
play.
hard-nosed
Role.
detective.
Here is an interesting question that asks us to cast a new Philip Marlowe or Sam Spade with a current actor.
Okay,
How have
yeah.
you gone about doing this? Because I've gone about doing this by putting this particular actor into a 40s movie.
Okay, so, like,
That's
it would be made today, but it would be set in the 40s?
Yes, so it would be made today, but it would be set in the 40s and made like a Maltese Falcon, a Big Sleep,
Okay,
or
okay.
Murder My Sweet, something like
See,
that.
my mind kind of did the same thing, but I also kind of maybe broke it up into eras. So, like, at the time that these guys were really, at their best and
Okay.
peak, and they would be playing this part. So
Okay.
I have a couple of, like, thoughts and then, like, my main answer.
Okay. Well, so do you have like somebody who is a big star today?
Yes. So I have a couple older gentlemen that I feel like could have done something like this in their kind of prime.
Okay, interesting. Let's go for that first then.
So my older picks who are older now would be like somebody like a George Clooney or Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, I prefer to George Clooney in that
Yes.
sense, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
I just kind of, but I'm thinking of kind of a younger George Clooney who really has that charm, but also is kind of very serious. So,
Although
but
I feel like they both
Harrison
come
Ford has a
pretty.
little bit more of the grit.
He does. You'd need to
Um,
uglify them up a bit.
yes, and so then I know this guy is more of a TV guy. I even can't really think of a ton of movies he's been in, but he definitely has the grit, and that is Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He just kind of
Ah,
popped into
okay.
my head.
I
Um,
don't mind that choice, actually.
yes. And then my more modern one was Tom Hardy because he definitely
Okay.
has a bit of the grit and, but I don't know if he has enough of the charm. But I liked the
Hmm.
grittiness of him and he can do almost anything. So he's great. But my actual answer
Ah, okay.
is Colin Farrell.
Jeannine, I love that your answer's Colin Farrell because my answer's Colin Farrell as well. It, it was he was my first thought, and it isn't because of he's just flying on television at the minute with the Penguin and all that kind of stuff. I haven't even seen an episode of the Penguin.
Me neither.
Um,
I need to. Everyone's like, "Ah, I gotta watch
Unfortunately, I
that."
definitely do need to.
Yeah.
Why I have chosen Colin Farrell. So my reasoning for choosing something like this was, yes, okay, you need to find somebody who is charming,
Yes.
edgy,
Yes.
or on edge, I should say.
Yes.
He's able to play stressed out,
Yes.
looks like he drinks a lot, looks
Yes.
like he smokes a lot.
Yes.
Yes, is handsome enough to attract the women in his life,
Yes.
but you can put a bit of makeup on him to uglify him a little bit.
Yes, and have him kind of fight against it, and Colin Farrell is, notorious for wanting to fight against his good looks, so he's not gonna be
Yes.
playing into that, he's not gonna be smoldering, he's not gonna be
No.
using charm to get information, he's gonna be, um, if it happens organically, then that's where it's gonna go, but he's not gonna inherently, like, go there with that. unless he's actually genuinely feeling that in the moment, like he did with like Bogart does with the girl in the bookshop, which is such a cute scene.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
he didn't inherently go in there to like have a drink with her and be cute with her. It just kind of
But
he
he
kind of
just
he just generally wanted to. Like, I'm stuck in here waiting this out, might as well enjoy myself, kind of thing.
also
But
looks like somebody that could have lived in the 40s,
yes.
and is fairly quick speaking, and I think that comes from his
Yes.
Irish nature. But yes, he's
Yes.
quick in the speaking. Doesn't take
And
minutes to say anything.
I'm inclined to say I feel like he played something very akin to this in the first movie. I think this is the first movie I ever saw him in, which was Minority Report. He's this detective who's investigating
Okay.
Tom Cruise's character and the pre-crime thing in the future, but he's very fast talking, he's very
Yeah.
investigatory, he's looking into everything, he's a little kind of charming when he needs to be. He's you know, kind of loose and cool, but serious as well.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to kind of say something that's maybe a little over the line to get a reaction, kind of thing. And he's
And
really
another thing.
competent and good at his job because, like, you know, in the movie, he ends up figuring out what he needs to figure out and
Yeah.
figures out a little too much. So I immediately thought to his role in Minority Report, and I'm like, he kind of played something like this in the first movie I ever saw him in. So
I
yeah,
must admit, I didn't think of any other specific role of Colin Farrell to liken him to playing a Marlowe or a Sam Spade type in a noir,
mhm,
but his entire aura, I
yeah,
suppose, just emanates this energy of private eye who never sleeps, constantly looks tired. Colin Farrell,
yeah,
he's very good at always looking tired. He always looks good when you shoot him in the nighttime and in the rain, and he
yes.
just
I could
looks
picture
right.
him in a trench coat and a hat,
You can.
brooding.
It's
Yes,
perfect.
I
Looking
could see him
utterly
being
miserable
physical, fighting and punching guys and
when
holding
he
a
needs to,
gun. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
he's not overly huge. He's not
No,
kind of or punitively tiny or anything like
yeah,
that. But is definitely can be quick to anger when he wants to be, but definitely reserved
and
and
listen and
methodical when he
yes, yeah,
wants to
yeah,
be. It is absolute, for my money, perfect casting for
yes,
a modern a modern noir private eye is Colin
yes.
Farrell.
I like that. Yes, I like that we have the same answer.
And he's the right age,
Yeah.
which I don't think, you were speaking about a couple of older people there
Yes. So,
going back to their
c
heyday, sure,
yeah.
but you couldn't choose a young up and comer. You couldn't choose
Yeah, because I
somebody maybe
mean,
30 for this,
even in
right?
that movie, he says he's 38. So,
What in which one? Big
I
Sleep?
I'm thinking in Maltese, and it's kind of
In Maltese
around the same.
Falcon,
He says he says he's supposed
yeah.
to be
In
38.
Maltese Falcon, Sam Spade is supposed to be, yeah, about
Yeah.
mid-late 30s,
Yeah.
which does Bogart. I mean,
Mm,
I can never tell how old Bogart is, to be honest with you, in any
yeah.
movie.
Those forehead wrinkles really
I mean, how
just
old's Colin Farrell? Colin Farrell's gonna be early 50s, hasn't he?
he's gotta be, yeah.
But could still pass off as playing
Oh, yeah,
40,
no, and he still looks great. So,
which is a good thing. He's
yeah,
perfect. Yes,
he's
it is.
48. He's 48.
He's 48, so it's perfect for that kind.
Perfect. Yes, make it happen.
Make it happen, Colin. Make
Yes.
it happen. This is another big question, favorite noir supporting role. I mean, you could go with anything from this. Why
I
haven't I chosen
know.
anything with Gloria Graham? Why didn't I choose Gloria Graham in anything? I adore Gloria Graham.
I
We've
know,
spoke
she's a
about her.
staple. Yes.
The
I
last one, that's why.
unfortunately did not go with her. Um, but I did go with a noir staple, and that is Dan Duryea as Danny Fuller in It Too Late for Tears.
Oh,
Um,
okay. You're calling out the
19
one Dan Duryea movie I've still not seen. Okay.
And didn't you say you own it? You just haven't watched
I
it?
do own the movie. Yes, I do own the movie. Do you want me to get it out for
And you
everybody?
haven't watched it yet?
Exactly where it is. It's right here. There it is. Look at it. Dan Duryea,
Very good.
Elizabeth Scott, Too Late for Tears. I've not watched.
Yes, it's great. So that was another first time watch for me. This couple is driving down the road. Somebody passes them, throws something in their car. It turns out it's a bag of money. The couple have to kind of decide what to do with it. The husband wants to give it to the police. The wife wants to keep it. He ultimately submits and says, okay, fine, we'll keep it. We'll hide it and spend it when the time is right. But she's becoming more and more obsessed with this money and wanting to keep it and wanting to spend it. And she thinks they're in the clear. And then here comes Dan Duryea at her door. It's his money. Where's my money? And she really tries to play it off like, oh, everything's fine. I don't have your money. I don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? I don't know. And, he says that somebody spotted their driver's license, so he knows she's the one. Ultimately, she can't keep up the ruse, and he knows it's her. And so she's desperate to hang on to this money. So she really goes toe to toe with him.
Okay.
To the point where she's really impressing him. And he's just like, how is this little housewife like talking back to me and scheming and plotting? And she's like trying to like make a plan with him so that she can maybe keep some of the money. And he's just like, you're like good lady. Like your grift is good. How are you so good for just being this, married lady in your house? Like he's so kind of taken aback by her. And he's even kind of impressed by her. But then it gets really interesting because then he plays into being very scared of her because he's a criminal of a certain type. He doesn't go to these like extreme things. So when she starts going to these darker extremes, it's even too much for him. So he has to play a lot of layers with this woman where he's pissed at her because she has his money and she's messing around with him. He's also kind of attracted to her. He's also kind of impressed with her. And then he's also kind of scared of her. So he has to play these layers when he's kind of supposed to be the one in charge and the one supposed to be scaring her. I mean, if you look at the poster, it's a picture of him like going to slap her. But she ends up kind of being the one in control. And so the fact that he kind of has to submit to that and play into that, he does an incredible job of playing all of these layers of kind of descent into this relationship with this woman, just trying to get his money back. So I love how they play off of each other. He's a support to help her kind of shine a lot. Like she is incredible in this film. And he's doing the perfect job of supporting her and really reacting to her escalation in some really great ways. So
I like that. See, I didn't want to pick a Dan Duryea performance. I didn't really want to pick a Gloria Green performance because I'd spoken about them for various questions on the last episode in part 1 in the first 15 questions, right?
Yes.
So I went with somebody else who I don't think we brought up at all in either show. Yeah, we may very well have done, but this is a phenomenal supporting role. It's one of my favorite villainous roles in a noir. In honestly, probably one of my favorite noirs. Certainly one of the pulpier and more outlandish noirs that I think more credit than is still given should be put onto Richard Conte's name. Because Richard Conte in The Big Combo is wonderful. He is horrible in that movie. Where the torture scene with the hearing aid when he's shouting in to his own lackey's hearing aid because he's just gone one step too far in incompetence is great. He is also able to play so many layers in that great movie. From totally in control, totally powerful, incredibly intimidating presence. He's very, very cold. He's steely-eyed, isn't he, Richard Conte? So he's very, very... You are afraid of him. Yes. You are constantly afraid of him. You know the lengths he's going to go to. He shows you the lengths go to in that movie. Yet when it all comes crashing down on him by the end of the movie, and he's got all those headlights on him and he can't see, and he's completely surrounded in that airport hangar. The panic on his face, the rushing around, the feeling of complete loss that he is able to portray, to go from the most powerful presence in the room just by being there. And this is his kind of physical nature, this is his gait, this is the way he carries himself. And he's like this a lot in the movies I've seen with him. That he kind of will start in that very confident manner. And end up getting progressively more on edge and progressively more, whether he's playing the lead or the villain of the movie. He will progressively get more on edge to the end where he is completely taken over in the big combo. Particularly him in the big combo is definitely one of my favorite noir supporting roles in one of my favorite noir movies. It isn't my favorite noir supporting role. That would come from a Dan Derriere or a Gloria Gray, I would think.
But yeah, I think we want to diversify and talk about different films and really share a broad range instead of talking about the same like 5 films over and over again.
Well, yeah, which you could do. I mean, you could go Peter Lorre in Maltese Falcon, right? Joe Cairo coming in there, mincing up the place and swaggering about with his cane. It's great, but Richard Conte deserves some love. I think. Yes. Well, let's move to some very specific questions, Jeannine, about 2 very specific people. First up, we have our favourite Ida Lupino noir. Interesting. Ida Lupino, of course, filmmaker and actress.
Yes, groundbreaking filmmaker for sure. I hadn't seen, I'm not incredibly well versed with her work. I think the only film of hers I had seen is While the City Sleeps, which we had covered.
That was an ensemble movie as well.
Yes, when we did our run of newspaper noirs. Which was an accidental themed series. I think we did Ace in the Hole, and then we're kind of like, let's just go down this road of like.
What did we do? Ace in the Hole, While the City Sleeps, Scandal Sheet with Broderick Crawford. Another one as well, I think. What was the other one? Was there another one? I forget.
Was it the Burt Lancaster one?
Burt Lancaster. I don't remember. I'll try and find. I'll try and find it. Carry on.
The one you mentioned. My brain can't think of the title.
Scandal Sheet.
No,
I don't know. Carry on. Carry on with Ida Lupino and While the City Sleeps. I will find.
Okay. Yes. No. So I did mention this before with my secretary answer, and that's Roadhouse 1948. So that was another new watch for this month, and she's incredible. She plays this character Lily Stevens. She is hired by, again, Richard Widmark. He finds her someplace performing. He really likes her and asks her to come to his small town dive roadhouse to perform and have a contract there. And his co-owner is his really good friend, played by Cornell Wilde, who will be appearing this week on this week's episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast. So yes, and he is very kind of doesn't like her. He doesn't want her there. And so there's a lot of tension between the two of them, and Richard Widmark is kind of in love with her. So he's trying to like get them to get along, and she's incredible. She has this very contentious kind of first meeting with Cornell Wilde, and she stands her ground against him really well. She has a really strong, powerful scene with him when he's just trying to like, she thinks he's taking her to the local hotel, but he's taking her back to the train station. She's like, no, I'm going to go when I want to go. He's trying to put his hands on her and grab her. She's like, slaps him. Like, she is like, no, I'm not doing what you're telling me to do. I'm going to go when I want to go. And I love kind of their sparking dynamic throughout the film. And it's kind of said that she's not even a great singer, so why did he pick her? He only picked her because he likes her. And when she gets up to perform, she's kind of like sitting at the bar. They put the spotlight on her. She's like smoking a cigarette and having her drink. She's like not even like, and like, you know, he's trying to do this grand introduction for her, and she's just like, okay. And then she's in her fancy dress. She goes, she rests her cigarette on the piano, and Cornell Wilde is like, why she put her cigarette like they even focus on him giving a look to her, just like casually setting her cigarette down on the piano, and she starts to play, and she's not singing incredibly, and I don't even know if it's actually her singing, but it's like it doesn't sound like overdubbed, it's not incredibly on key, but she's playing the piano, she's kind of talk singing a little bit, she's really giving this just whole vibe to the performance. And even at the end we have the Susie secretary character saying, I've never seen someone do so much with such a not great voice, or something like that, she says. So her being able to kind of captivate this room, not being a great singer, her kind of standing up for herself, and she kind of has this little sparring thing with Susie as well. So she kind of has these little sparky moments with a lot of the characters, and so she's just a really strong, sassy, cool, independent, really just strong character. So I really loved her in Roadhouse. So definitely check it out. Not Roadhouse, Magic Swayze. Roadhouse from 1948.
Okay. The fourth movie we did in newspaper series wasn't a noir at all, by the way. It was Libeled Lady from 1936.
Oh, okay. Okay.
William Powell, Myrna Loy, Spencer
Yes,
Tracy,
a nice
Dean
little
Harlow.
screwball comedy. Yes.
So
okay.
that's what we did there. My fight, we won't spend much time on this at all, because my genuine favorite Ida Lupino movie is On Dangerous Ground. That is the movie that we will be closing out.
Yes, and I haven't watched it yet.
No, you haven't watched it yet. It's the movie we will be closing out our Noirvember series on the main show with. So I won't spend any time talking about it, because we'll be doing a full show on it next week. But it definitely is. She comes in to direct part of the movie when Nicholas Ray falls ill as well. And she is a very, very great, director as well. The Prowler is a great movie that she does direct with Van Heflin. That's a good noir.
Yes, no, I wanted to seek out a lot of her work that she directed and more of the film she's been in. So I tried to kick that. This question reminded me of that mission to do that, because I think when we did cover While the City Sleeps, you had mentioned to me that she directed and did all these things, and I was just like, because taken aback by that, because I mean, that's
the Hitchhiker as well. The Hitchhiker is not a movie that I've seen. Is a movie that I definitely want to see. That is
and so I remember you kind of mentioning that to me when we covered that, and I was like, oh, I'm really interested, and then I just, of course, never did. So this question already kind of kicked me off to watch another film with her, and I ended up really enjoying Roadhouse. So the mission is on to see more of her work behind the camera and in front.
Yes, and the mission is on to see On Dangerous Ground as well. And speaking of On Dangerous Ground, our next question, favorite Robert Ryan film noir, which might also be On Dangerous Ground, to be honest with you, but actually, from my mind, isn't my favorite Robert Ryan movie. Well, to be honest, my favorite Robert Ryan noir is probably the one that I've maybe told you to choose, because
I think it's the only one I've seen, because I haven't watched On Dangerous Ground yet, as we haven't covered it yet. So,
but it is that one is a phenomenal movie. So the one I'm going to choose is one that I had mentioned in the previous episode, which is The Setup from 1949, which to be honest might be my favorite Robert Ryan movie as well as the one you're picking. But it is, I spoke about it then, Robert Wise directed it. It's such a tight movie, such a short movie, all done in real time, boxing movie, and perfectly embodies the hulking sympathy of somebody like Robert Ryan, who is an enormous, grizzled, evil man, but comes across as so sympathetic, somebody you absolutely adore, somebody you want to see the best of, and he's never ever allowed it. The setup perfectly embodies that. He's obviously this down on his luck boxer coming towards the end of his career, constantly the fall guy, constantly the loser, finally thinks he can win a match, finally has, you know, after so long of loss after loss after loss after loss. But it is set up with some gangsters that he's going to throw the match without telling him.
Yeah.
And he eventually goes against that. And like we said, like I said, this entire movie is in real time. It you know, it is a really wonderfully structured movie and a very, very personal movie, totally centered around Robert Ryan. It doesn't work if Robert Ryan isn't giving this incredible sympathy throughout the entire movie. Okay. But by the end, it devastates you. And I spoke about this as much in the last episode, which was, I think, in the question of what is a scene in a noir that constantly moves you. And the ending of the setup is very much that. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie and takes no time at all to watch. So just go and watch.
Okay. Well, yes. And so it's great that you're talking about him being this really sympathetic character that you love and you care about. So
as opposed to your movie.
Yes, exactly. Which just is like now speaking to an incredible actor he is, because in the movie that I'm talking about is Odds Against Tomorrow, where he's an incredible racist. He's trying to do this heist with two other men. One of them happens to be a black man played by Harry Belafonte. It was 1959. And so it causes a lot of complications with the heist because, you know, he can't just do what he needs to do. He constantly is just being terrible to this black man. And so it's a really interesting dynamic to throw into a heist team situation. And he's just deplorable as this person. You know, he's just, you know, he's terrible to this black man, but he's also just kind of terrible in general. So the fact that you're saying this loving character he plays, and then he can go into this film just being this awful human, an incredible performance, like love to hate him. And
well, you'll be seeing him as an awful human who might turn good in On Dangerous Ground. I mean,
so then it'll just be kind of like the middle of both of these in that film.
He begins On Dangerous Ground in incredibly brutal fashion, and somewhat softens when he meets Ida Lupino. That's the point of the movie. But Odds Against Tomorrow was great.
Yes,
so good.
Podcast episode, check it out.
There certainly is. There certainly is. We like the symbolism at the end of Odds Against
Tomorrow. It's great ending.
Great finale. Next question is another interesting one. It's the best film noir fashion. I mean, I want to ask how you've taken this question, because I've taken this question as just to mean the items of clothing themselves rather than anybody's given wardrobe for a movie.
So I went for kind of wardrobe in a movie, just like so I kind of have two films. One that was my general one, and then we actually watched one, which we're gonna be discussing on the podcast on Friday. So check it out. That just was rife with incredible fashion that I had to just kind of throw in the mix as well. So yes, I mean individual costumes, but like all of the costumes this character wears in this film are incredible, and so that is in Gilda. All of Rita Hayworth's costumes when she's performing, that silvery white dress that, you know, somebody's kind of fitting her in. She wears in several scenes. Absolutely gorgeous how things fit her. The little cute midriff ones, and she's performing the kind of slinky items. Like everything just looks gorgeous on her. And then we move to our Friday film, Leave Her to Heaven. Every single thing that Jean Tierney wears is something that I would wear today. Like super stylish, the furs, the pins, pretty much. I mean, maybe not her pregnancy stuff, but not her maternity
really
wear.
Gold green thing.
Okay, maybe not, but, like, when she's first, the whole white outfit she's wearing when she's,
Yeah,
first kind of courting Cornell Wilde, when she meets him on the train, and the hat and the fur, incredible. She
and
has some great
sunglasses.
suits. When she's kind of at home, she's kind of wearing, like, this puffy kind of, bohemian shirt and this, like, cute plaid skirt. Um, the very famous shot, even if you don't know what is happening in the scene, she's like in this full kind of great white trench, cream trench, and which, because this movie's in Technicolor, so we see all the colors of
Yeah.
everything, and these great sunglasses. Um, so many just incredible looks, that I would wear a lot of them today.
Okay.
Yes, beautiful costumes, and I love that we get to see all the colors of them and all her accessories, hats and pins and necklaces, and all of it feels kind of very modern too, or timeless,
Okay.
I guess, is a better
Yeah.
word. So yes, love the costuming that we recently saw in Leave Her to Heaven.
See, I have gone for specific items of clothing. I
Okay.
mean, the men's noir fashion is boring compared to women's noir
Well, I
fashion.
know we did talk a little bit about liking Burt Lancaster's, uh,
Oh, we
some
did.
of his
We do
looks,
like Burt.
in
Yes, that's right.
Crisscross. Yeah.
We do like specifically Burt Lancaster's looks in Crisscross and Danderier's suits, but
Mhm.
generally it's just they're always good to look at because they're always just good looking suits, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's if you like that style of suit, which I kind of happen to do like that style of suit. Maybe I don't, maybe I wouldn't look good in that style of suit. I've no idea, but these people do look good in that style of suit. So I enjoy that style of suit. I mean, you can't have noir without the hat that you're currently wearing. So why wouldn't that be in the best film noir fashion? That style of hat has to be mentioned. Um, Very, very high waisted pants. I think I've only come to wear high waisted pants myself after falling in love with noir,
Yeah.
and they are the best style of pants to wear. Comfiest, best looking, all
Yes,
around.
I
Burt Lancaster
concur.
in
I've
crisscross.
since found myself in oversized high-waisted pants lately.
It's
Flat.
just perfect, and
Yeah.
it's very noir. It's very
Yes.
noir to do that. Um, but as far as it really is the women's fashion that I think excels in noir. And for me, it is either sunglasses, it's either femme fatale sunglasses, where you can't see their eyes, Leave It to
Yeah.
Heaven, Double Indemnity,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Or you mentioned Gilda before, but this is also Ava Gardner in The Killers, most notably as well. The long black opera gloves.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love the look of it. The like the black Gilda does this. The black dress, black
Mhm.
strapless dress with the
Yes.
long
The
black
long
gloves.
gloves. Yes. Mhm.
Lovely
Great.
stuff.
Yeah.
Perfect. That I think is
Yeah, okay.
just
I
some of my
like it.
favorite film noir
Yes.
fashion.
I like that we had a couple.
Yes, we have an interesting question now that I've also tweaked to my own accord.
Yes, I kind of made this a deeper answer than I probably
Okay,
needed to be.
so this is just it just
Question
wants a film noir featuring food.
Yes, so this is question 28, so we're almost done,
Oh,
guys.
we are, yes, yes, only a
Yes.
couple left.
Um, yeah, so I couldn't really think off the top of my head a film noir where maybe the food was, like, a featured thing,
Neither could
but
I really, although there is a lot of eating in A Lonely Place, but I mean, how many times have we talked about In a Lonely Place on the last episode? I didn't
yes,
really want
and
to bring.
and I was kind of on a mission to incorporate, different films, as I said. I don't wanna kind of pick the same films, I wanna talk about different ones and find great things that I can favorite things in, so even if it's not my outright favorite, it's one that I found favorite things in. is
Okay.
kind of how I went about this whole challenge. Um, so one thing that came straight to my mind was something I talked a lot about when we covered it on the podcast, was in The Big Heat.
Mm,
I absolutely fell in love with the dynamic between Glenn Ford and his wife.
yes.
And so when he comes
Yes.
home and they have this really great dinner scene and he's
Sitting
sitting
on
on
the
the
couch.
couch reading the newspaper and she's like, well, you're gonna come help me. And he immediately gets up and he helps her. And it just feels like this modern energy. Because, I think in most film noirs, the women are relegated to kind of uh not being treated in the best way. They're being
No.
beaten up, or they're promiscuous and shady
Well,
characters or manipulators or things like that. So to see this really great functioning couple,
yeah,
she
you
asks him
certainly
to
don't
help.
get loving marriages a great deal in noir.
Exactly. And so to see this really modern feeling, pure organic partnership. They're drinking from each other's glass. They're sharing a cigarette. He's helping her set the table. He's asking about her day and if their daughter got to bed all right. So she's serving up this steak dinner. They're kind of talking about the food quite a bit. Like, oh,
Yeah.
my coworkers are telling me they pay me too much if I can be affording steak dinners. And it's like steak and baked potato, which obviously yummy. And she's asking him if the steak's okay, and so, like, they're talking about the food and having this really nice moment, and I think when what happens to the wife happens to the wife, they've established this great relationship with the two of them, so when she does end up dying, which, of course, not a shock in a noir, it
Dying or exploding.
exploding, which was an explosion meant for him.
Yes.
Um you really care, and it's incredibly impactful because you saw just what a tight, unit the two of them were as a couple, particularly in this dinner scene with the two of them having the steak and potato dinner. So it's one of my favorite scenes in noir, just getting to see this functioning couple, caring about them, seeing how much he cares about her, seeing how they are this really on equal ground with each other, despite kind of the norms of the time and the norms of how women are treated in the genre. They are pure equals in every way, sharing everything, really talking to each other, having real conversations over this meal of steak and potatoes. So I just
Well,
ended up going a little bit deeper with it because this dinner scene really created some great interesting layers in terms of how women are viewed and made for a far more impactful situation for our lead character because we saw how much he cares about her in this one scene in particular.
I have nothing better to say other than what you said there. I appreciate all of those thoughts so
Yes, I
much.
got a little too nuanced, but
Any more love for the big heat we can possibly find is worthwhile in my book. I've kind of tweaked this one to almost what food embodies film noir the most. And I mean, you've said it there. For me, it is specifically. I've gone specifically a steak done medium
Mm,
with fried eggs
okay.
because simple, quick, does the job, not particularly nutritious, and the fact the steak is done medium, there's a bit of toughness there, but
Okay.
it's still palatable.
Okay,
Like
so
I am
you
somebody
found a
who,
meal that kind of describes noir.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I've
Okay,
done.
I like it.
Um, the eggs are just they're simple, they're quick, they're effective, they do the job.
Yes. Yes.
The steak done medium, there's a bit of toughness. You need a
Yes.
bit of grit. You need a bit of
Yeah.
you need to fight through this a bit, but it's also still palatable
Yes.
because I like
Okay.
my steak very rare, bleeding
Yes.
on the plate.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm medium rare person.
So I didn't. I didn't want to go like steak well done because then it's not even nice to eat.
Yeah.
No, and noir is nice to eat.
Yes.
So that medium is the perfect medium, I suppose, of nice to eat and also a bit tough that you need because it's fighty. Steak and eggs embody film noir, and I think steak and eggs is what Bogart eats a lot in A Lonely Place.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Like
so.
steak for breakfast. I mean, you're insane. He's insane anyway.
It's a common thing here.
And steak dinners
Steak
in
and
the
eggs.
big heat.
Yeah,
Everybody
everybody
likes
likes
steak
steak.
noir.
Yes.
Our penultimate question it feels like a big question. Feels like a
Yeah.
big question, and for me, it's got a big answer. I hope for you, it's got a big answer as well, because this is. Let's make sure we do the sound effect, please, Jeannine. The favourite RKO film noir. Film noir comes out of RKO Radio Pictures. Admittedly, RKO Radio Pictures
We always
is
make
not
fun.
my. We do, yes, but what is a radio picture? You can't have pictures on the radio, as we always like to say.
Yeah.
RKO is not my most watched studio for noir.
No. And when I looked it up to see, RKO noir films, there weren't a lot. I was like,
I mean, there's a good amount.
there's a good amount, but there wasn't as many as I thought there would be.
I am much more watched on Columbia, Universal, Fox Noir than I am RKO Noir. Although there's obviously a great handful in there to pick from, and one happens to be one of my favourite and one of the very best.
Yes,
which is Out of the Past.
That is my answer as well. I mean, there was another one in there, but it's for the last question, so I didn't want to use it.
Okay. Out of the Past is definitely the best RKO film noir, because it is one of the best noirs. And you think, I mean, there's other ones in the list of RKO noir that, again, I haven't watched. I even own some of them. Crossfire. It's supposed to be a great movie that I do own and haven't watched. Angel Face, that we did on the show, just on Fridays, is a great RKO noir. Mitchum movies, basically, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
But Mitchum's, I mean, I was going to say Mitchum's never better than he is in Out of the Past, but that's a lie, isn't it? Because you have Night of the Hunter.
Yeah.
It's a mad movie, Out of the Past. It is a horrible movie at times. It is a really, really spiteful kind of movie. It is a messily plotted movie in the best way possible. Kirk Douglas, a very early role for Kirk Douglas as the villain in the movie. And Jane Greer is one of the great femme fatales, with one of the great twist reveals as a femme fatale in the genre's history. And Mitchum just looks a complete sappy fool the entire time. And it is wonderful for doing that. It embodies the entire genre. Its narration is pristine.
You get these flashbacks galore.
Flashbacks upon flashbacks. I mean, what's more noir than that? The entire story is built around a weak man being romantically manipulated, which is what is more noir than that, whilst also being involved in crime, whilst also being hunted by some sort of crime boss, a la a fairly vicious
everything. It's giving you everything that you think of.
You absolutely everything. It looks glorious. Jacques Tourneur directs the movie. It is visually incredible. It is structured in an incredible way that just insists you pay attention to it, insists you watch it, totally draws you in. And I don't think, I say, it's wrong to say Mitchum is never better because Night of the Hunter's there. But Mitchum is never better in a lead, I suppose, hero role than he is in Out of the Past, I would say.
I would say.
If he is never better than he is in Night of the Hunter, that is his villainous turn, and in opposite to that is Out of the Past, because he is such the fall guy in this movie all the time.
Yeah.
and you do feel sorry for him, but you know it's his own fault because he's an idiot.
Yes.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's so good. Anything
Really good.
particular to say yourself?
No, I mean, I think you covered it all. I think I really like the story, the narration, how we start, how it builds, how we kind of bounce back. We flashback as he's driving to this present situation, and
Yeah.
they give him somebody to kind of narrate to, so it's not just kind of this open-ended narration for us. He's actually talking to somebody and telling them about his past. So I like when it's kind of within the story and not just for our benefit. Um, so yeah, I like that there makes sense with the flashbacks in terms of how they're told. And then we kind of get back into the present of the story. So I like how it's structured, kind of bouncing back. I think the flashbacks are done well. Yeah, it's great to see a young Kirk Douglas.
Yeah.
And yeah, just
We're
really
young.
has all of the elements that you want in a noir, the twisty crime story, the messy romance, your kind of villainous crime boss, all of the tasty things that give you all the tense moments, the double crosses, all of that,
Yeah.
and has you just feeling bad for our sad sap kind of leading guy. Yeah, it plays into all of kind of the typical things, but done really well. So um you can't get mad when these films kind of harp on the same kinds of moods and tropes
No.
when they're done well.
And
So
like I said, there are a few more shocking scenes in the entire genre than panning to Jane Greer holding that gun next to the window
yeah.
when you
Mhm.
realise what she's done,
Yeah.
and you realise that it's her.
Yeah.
It's crazy at that point
Mhm.
in the movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. It really, really
Yes.
is. We end this whole challenge, Jeannine, with question 30. As is only
Mhm.
right, Lady K Designs wants us to answer best film noir ending to end
Yeah. So
challenge
question
noir.
1 was opening, right?
It was question 1 was opening. Question 30 is ending. What is the best film noir ending? I mean, there are so many to go off.
Yes.
Do you go grim, nasty ending? Do you go happy ending? Do you go somewhere in the middle? Do you go something that's iconic? Do you go something that's underrated? Do you go a movie we've talked about loads? Do you go a movie I don't think we've talked about at all, which is where I've gone actually.
Yeah,
But
same.
what?
And somebody you mentioned that you were kind of sad we didn't talk about more. Uh,
Oh,
yes.
is it Richard Conte?
No, from the directing front. Um,
Ah, Hitchcock. Oh yes,
yeah.
I know exactly what you're going with. Yes.
I talk about this ending all the time. If anybody does a prompt, no matter how many times you do the prompt of what's the best scene where a character knows they're dead. Like
Yeah.
so good.
It's
So
this, isn't it? It's this. What is it, Tom?
obviously, it is notorious. I love this movie. You bought me the Criterion for one of the many Christmas birthday exchanges we've done, and I
Yes.
watched my nice Criterion copy for the first time last week, and it looked incredible. Yes, just that staircase scene where it's kind of the three of them having to walk, together and keep up appearances,
Yeah.
and it's so tense, that staircase scene. And then we get outside and we get in the car, and they just drive off and leave Claude Rains there. They are already kind of suspicious. They know that he's let somebody infiltrate their whole kind of situation.
Spy
And
circle.
yes, their whole, like, kind of Nazi spy circle, someone's infiltrated it and has been spying on them, and he let it happen because he, was just blinded by love, and so that's not what a good soldier does. So,
No.
he begs for Cary Grant to, let him come with them, and they're like, "Sorry, guy, nope." They just drive off. He turns around, faces this doorway. They're like, "Hey, come, we want to talk to you." And the
Yeah.
look on his face, and he just walks through the door, and we know they're
We
they're
do
gonna
know.
kill him. We know we don't need to see it. They don't need to say it. They can say, "Hey, just come on," like all nice, like it's fine. But the panic of him going down those stairs, having them ask him questions, and him just trying to, go through the motions. His mother yelling at him, "Say something,
Mm,
say something." All of that tension building, the fear and panic when he's begging them to let him get into the car with them, and they're like, "Nope." And that slow turn, and they're just like, "Come on." Like,
yeah,
it just gives you all the little things you need to know the fate of this awful character, and you just relish in it, and it
it's
feels so good. It's the best comeuppance. I love me some comeuppance. It's
you
just
do.
the tension of all of it is just so good. I love it.
It satisfies you, doesn't it, Jeannine?
Yes, very
Satisfies.
much so.
And my pick is a stunningly satisfying ending as well. I mean, look, we could have gone for incredibly dark ending, your double indemnities. You could have gone for
Sunset Boulevard, which is what I think we both, or that was my opening answer.
yes, it was
Sunset.
my opening answer, yeah, but
Yeah.
you could have gone for poetic and like Sunset
Yeah.
Boulevard or Touch of Evil's ending.
Yeah.
Or something like that. You could have gone for the ending of The Big Combo, but I talked about that
Yeah.
before when I was
Odds
talking about
Against Tomorrow. We
the
talked about the
ending of Odds
poetic
Against
nature of that.
Tomorrow.
Mhm.
I've actually gone for one of the happy endings, though.
Okay.
I've gone for one of the happy endings. You could, if we also question this again, like we did in part one, is Casablanca a noir? Maybe if you want to throw Claude Rains in there again, uh,
Yeah. Peter
because
Lorre. Yeah.
he does end that movie, doesn't he?
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
is going to be the start of a beautiful
Beautiful
friendship
friendship.
and
I
all
mean,
that.
that could have been the line, all them lines in that one.
Could have been the line, but is Casablanca a noir? That's a discussion that we could spend hours and hours and hours on
Yeah.
and contemplate over, and need to get more people's opinions on and
Yes.
ask around. There's a whole 10-episode podcast series out there on is Casablanca a noir, if we want to make that, Jeannine, I think, but
Yeah. It could.
who has the time? Sometimes maybe we have the time.
I mean, apparently we have the time.
We have the time to do this. What is the best film noir ending? I have chosen a satisfyingly happy ending, an ending you really, 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 really wanted to see when you've watched the entirety of this movie and felt so bad for its lead character the entire time. Really wanted to see the evilness of this man be, thrown back on him.
Yes.
The taste of his own medicine, shall we say, which is exactly what he gets. Comeuppance. Because I've chosen Gaslight.
Yes. Oh, so good. Yes.
Because the entire movie of Gaslight, there's a reason, to gaslight has become a verb. And it's because of the movie Gaslight, and we all know what that means.
Yes.
So the ending of Gaslight, when Ingrid Bergman finally, for the love of God,
Ingrid just making the best movie endings. I mean, Casablanca too.
She does, right? I mean, give it
Lady
to Ingrid
knows how to end a movie. Yeah.
Give it to Ingrid Bergman. The fulfillment you feel watching the ending of Gaslight, laughing to yourself, going, yes, finally. Yes, suffer and die, Charles Boyer. Suffer and die, please. And he does, and she gets out of there, and it's so glorious. It's delicious.
I love it.
Beautiful. It's you adore every
Feels
second
good.
of it.
Yeah.
Everything she's saying, she gets him all tied up. She gets him locked there. And everything just comes out in this one big speech of how terrible he's been the entire time. And we know he's been terrible the entire time.
Yes, we've seen it all. Yes.
We've seen him gaslight her to the point that the movie becomes a verb to do that exact kind of manipulation.
Yeah.
And it is all so satisfyingly relieving at the end of that movie when she frees herself from his clutches and makes him suffer only a small part of what she has suffered for years and years and years at that point.
Love
It is, it's an incredible ending to the movie, and just makes me want to go and watch the movie again.
Yes, it
Thinking
does.
about
It's been a while.
to be
Podcast
honest.
episode on that as well. Check it
There
out.
is. Lot of episodes of the show. 340 episodes of It's a Wonderful Podcasting show. So you'll find many of these movies have been discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay!
There we go. Another epic noir discussion. Noirvember has been fun. It has not.
It has not ended yet, and it will not end when we get into December, which I'm excited about.
No, it will not. Noirvember comes, doesn't it? Or Noircember, I suppose.
Yes.
In December with festive film noir on the main show, but this will be it for this specific challenge and this specific Noirvember celebration on Monday Madness. It's been exciting to do something a little bit different on this.
Yeah, this was fun.
This a great deal. Perhaps in the future, for specific months, we can do something like this again. I have enjoyed this little bit of an extra discussion. Maybe pick a genre, pick one of these question challenges that you see.
Yeah, just break it down like that. Yeah.
Fly out and about, have good discussions on all these various topics. Of course, though, this is Monday Madness, which you can find on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed. Subscribe and ding the notification bell on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel if you are watching today's episode. I'm going to take the little banner off the bottom now so you can see our names again. There are names. And subscribe to the main podcast feed. How many times have we brought up It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show on today's episode? A lot. That is every Friday, celebrating old movies. Morgan Hasn't Seen is every Wednesday as well. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find It's a Wonderful Podcast there. Do subscribe. Let us know. Leave the comments. Let us know what you think about these questions. Let us know your answers. All that fun stuff. If you want to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, you can find links to do that in the description of this episode. We would love you forever for doing that. Certainly. Another big thank you to Lady K Designs.
Yes, thank you.
Challenge.
It's very fun.
Very fun, very
Great
interesting,
questions.
challenging, because it does make you think about tiny little things that you really can't quite think, and does make you want to further your noir knowledge, I suppose, with deeper movies and smaller movies and things like that, which is only for the best. When you find all these great little movies in the noir genre. What else? The social medias, I guess, Jeannine. They've been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long if you have been watching, but you can find the show on the app formerly known as Twitter and on Blue Sky now at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E and the because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky myself at the Purple Dawn. See, that's something wrong with the app formerly known as Twitter as well. It still doesn't let me have just the Purple Dawn. It needs to have the 3 in there. No, everywhere else, I'm absolutely fine.
Yes. Well, yeah. They shut down my original account, so that's why I'm Jeannine Devine _ over on Twitter. Because I played a copyrighted song. Instead of giving me a warning, they just shut down my whole account. Yes. So yes, you can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram. TikTok, and Blue Sky. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, there is only one thing left to do, Jeannine. In your best noir impression, please, whatever that may be. You could be a femme fatale, you could be a private eye, you could pretend you're Colin Farrell as a new version.
Oh, sorry. 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.